Okay, so welcome back to Mea Culpa, Rick Wilson. Great to have you back. So, look,
Michael,
I'm just going to jump.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, my brother. I'm just going to jump right into it and ask you the question that's on everybody's mind. How do Democrats win across the board in November? Tell us what needs to happen for Democrats to keep the White House and the Senate and take the Congress. I mean, all of this is necessary in order to preserve democracy. So what do Democrats have to do?
The first thing they have to do is stop being passive. Stop thinking that the media is going to do their job for them. Stop believing that the message about Donald Trump and who and what he is going to get out there to everybody. Stop believing that that unless your message is perfect for every Democratic voter, you shouldn't deliver it to any Democratic voter. And stop believing that you're going to win this thing without bashing Donald Trump's head in rhetorically and politically and emotionally and psychologically every single goddamn day between now and November. They've got to go on the attack, and they've got to stay on the attack.
Okay, so dive into it, right? I mean, easy words, just like when Donald turns around and says, if you elect me president, I'm going to end the Ukraine-Russia war in 24 hours. If I was president, Israel and Hamas, this fight would be over tomorrow. If I was president, that there would be no hunger in the entire world. If I was president, that there would be no immigration problem at all. If I was president, we wouldn't have a national debt. If I was president, everything would be honky-dory. There'd be no more hurricanes. There'd be no more natural disasters. And he says this shit, and everybody knows that what he's saying is pure garbage, but yet they start to continue to regurgitate the same lies that he tells. I need to know more from you. What is actually needed?
Michael, Donald fills up the information vacuum with bullshit. And Democrats, instead of saying that's bullshit, try to go into this like elaborate thing like, well, our policy is this, instead of you have to destroy him every day. You can never let the guy off the mat. You have to keep hitting him and hitting him and hitting him, because if you don't, he will just lie and lie. You know this better than any human being on earth. Donald Trump can open his mouth and lie for 5 minutes more than most people could do in a month if they practiced. This is a guy who knows that if he can just keep talking without interruption, he is going to convince a percentage of people that he's telling the truth. He's the greatest con man of all history. He's the greatest con man of anybody's understanding. But part of that con comes from the fact that other people don't check his shit. Other people don't punch him in the face. Other people don't go back every day because they really still want to be nice. They want to be liked. They want to sell policy over emotion. And campaigns are won with emotion. They are won with a gut feel. And if we can tell people this guy is a reprobate, a scumbag, a felon, a criminal, a degenerate, over and over and over again, not that you're outraged. Oh, I'm outraged by Trump saying something bad. But no, you just assert this is a bad guy. He won't be a good president. He is a proven liar. He is an adjudicated sexual assaulter. He is a guy you wouldn't hire to run a Waffle House. And you got to keep that up. You got to keep that hit up all the time. And it's something a lot of people in politics, they don't want. They don't like it. I understand that it's a hard way to live. I've lived that way now for 9 years. It's a hard fight. You got to do it every day. You got to get up and do it again and again and again and again. And yes, is it exhausting? It's exhausting. You get tired of doing it? You get tired of doing it. Trump counts on people to get tired and to let him get away with more shit. That's why we have to pound him and just never, ever relent on this guy.
Yeah, it's amazing because how many times have I fortunately had you on this podcast and I say the same thing over and over and over again. Democrats have no real messaging skills. I said it to you the last time and the time before that. Jamie Harrison does not put out a proper message. I bumped into a buddy of mine who's actually in the media business himself. in Los Angeles today. Hadn't seen him just by hapstance. I was sitting having coffee with a buddy of mine, and he walked by, and I was so happy to see him. But of course, we start talking about politics. We start talking about what I just went through. We start talking about the 34 guilty convictions. We start talking about Joe Biden. And he is a Democrat. Let me be very clear. He is a registered and a true blue Democrat out of California. And his comment to me is he's sickened by the fact that there are even Democrats that are saying, I just can't vote for Joe Biden. That Joe Biden is not just that he's old, or he looks old. I mean, he's only 2 years older. They refer to him as being dead, that he's basically walking and talking, but he's really just a skeleton. He's just a mannequin, right? And that he's really just no passion, no energy, no anything. That's the one thing you got to fucking give Donald a lot of credit for. He's out of his fucking mind, and he's got the energy of like a 12-year-old. And he
is like bouncing off the fucking walls every day with bad things in his heart. But that battery of his is always juiced. It's always running. He's always got some new fuckery afoot. Anyway, but
how do we? My point to you is, how do we get past that narrative? I don't see. And the funny thing, I'll tell you what my friend turned around and said to me, which is true. The best economy in the last 100+ years, lowest unemployment, highest job growth. Okay, right now the interest rates are high. That's about it. We have the highest amount of oil production for sale this country's ever had. All of these wonderful things that Biden has done and accomplished, forgetting about things like the CHIPS Act, forgetting things about the infrastructure bill, forgetting about all of the bipartisan bills that have been passed, blah, 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 right? We have the greatest economy right now, not just in the world, but in America's history. And no one talks about it. They talk about how old he looks, how tired he seems to be, how just quiet, even when he's talking. It's very labored and so on. How the fuck do we get past this so that people stop? And people who want to vote for him, how do we get past it so that they stop saying these sort of things?
One of my pieces of advice that was that a year ago was kind, strategic advice to my Democratic friends, and 6 months ago it was stern, strategic advice to my friends, and now it's like me shaking them and saying, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" If you make the best the enemy of the good in this campaign, you get Donald Trump. If you think that you're going to get something other than Joe Biden at this point in the game, you're going to get Donald Trump. At some point, there is absolutely no further argument about why Democrats continue to sort of cross their hands and sit home and grump about the whole thing, when the alternative is Donald fucking Trump. Suck it up. Okay, if you're a climate person, you didn't get everything you wanted in the Inflation Reduction Act or the infrastructure bill. Okay, if you're a gun person, you didn't get everything you wanted in the Firearms Act. All these things that you don't think Joe Biden's given you enough on. If you're opposed to America's position and Biden's position on Israel and Gaza, what do you think's gonna happen if Donald Trump is president? Jared Kushner's gonna be over there with fucking bulldozers paving Gaza into a parking lot to build a fucking water park. These people are these Democrats who do not get up every day and say, Joe Biden's the best fucking president of my lifetime. He's 10 feet tall. He's covered in steel. He is the best guy I've ever imagined for this office. And say it publicly instead of sniping all the goddamn time, whining like little bitches to the New York Times. Oh, he's old. I don't like that he's not doing X or Y for him. Shut the fuck up. Get on board. Act like Republicans for once and get the loyalty you need in your own team. You know, if the Democratic base was secure and solid, This race would be over tomorrow.
I think you
But
meant
we've
to
got
say
a
Democrats,
faction of the Democratic Party that cannot be happy, and they are sandbagging this president every day, and it makes me furious, Michael.
Yeah, I think you meant to say Democrats, not Republicans. But either way, your point is extremely well taken. Democrats have to stop shitting on Joe Biden and just start acknowledging to everyone, whether or not it's a Republican, a MAGA moron, or other sort of self-loathing Democrats. It is the best economy, not just in the world, in America's history. We have the history. We have the highest job growth. We have the lowest unemployment. We have. And all of this was done under Joe Biden. Yeah, interest rates are high. Okay. We'll figure that out too in due course.
Right.
It's certainly not as high as when it was under Jimmy Carter or even Ronald Reagan, right? I mean, let's be serious. Now, I want to ask you a question because what really perturbs me a lot is obviously very good week last week in terms of holding Donald Trump accountable for his own dirty deeds. Came at a massive cost to me, to my family.
Is it? Yep.
But how much difference do you think that Trump's guilty verdict is going to make? I mean, half or more of the country thinks he's a criminal and should drop out of the race. Doesn't this worry Republicans? Because I don't see it that way, especially the Republican donors. If there's any semblance to truth, and you know as well as I do, Donald's claiming that just in the month of May, he raised like $151 million for his campaign.
I think that is
now,
right.
I say that's
we're going to find
shit.
out. I think we're going to find out it's maybe a fifth or a quarter of that number. I wouldn't be shocked if they raised $25 million in the course of the month. But I think, like all things with Trump, the numbers bullshit. It's a sales pitch. It's like, saying that his apartment in Trump Tower is 57,000 square feet or whatever it is when it's 12,000, whatever the number would be, right? And the media is buying it hook, line, and sinker. But look, here's the thing. Major donors will stick with Donald Trump now because they are afraid that he'll punish them if he wins. Small dollar donors, look, I'm sure there's been a little bump in that number, but a lot of those people are giving him money for his legal bills. They don't really realize it, but let's even say they raised $100 million. Okay, first off, Trump and the family are going to skim off $25 million of that front end. Second off, the legal fees are still there. They're still pounding away at him every day. He's got more legal bills by the minute. They are not going away. He's going to still spend money on himself and his businesses and everything else. So by the time you take that money and say, put it into the field for the campaign, that's the ball game. It's over. There's not that much money involved. So, look, he and Biden are going to be financially competitive all the way home. They're both going to have a lot of money in the end. I think Biden will end up net having more money in the end. And I think Trump, will continue to spend the money not on campaigning, but on his legal bills and his personal expenses and his own pocketbook. Because as you and I both know, Donald Trump has never had a single business that was truly fundamentally successful over time except one, the email fundraising grift that he's been running for 10 years. That has been the most successful business of his lifetime by a long stretch.
I'll tell you, I'm going to give you my, I'm going to prognosticate for a second. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be shocked if during the month of May that they took in this $151 million. I wouldn't be shocked. But he's not telling the truth in terms of where and how this money was raised and where it's at. Right. I'll tell you, as far as the campaign is concerned, the small dollar donors or the amounts that are legally permissible per individual,
right?
I would say you're probably right. It's probably 20% of that number. Maybe it's $30 million at most. So you say, okay, Michael, well, where's the $121 million? That went into his super PAC. because people like Sheldon Adelson's wife has already pledged to give massive amounts of money because she thinks she has Trump in her back pocket to do what she wants to be done for the benefit of Israel. Because he's sitting
which is
there
to
and
fully annex the West Bank, because what could go wrong at this point with that idea?
Right. And she's got billions of dollars now that Sheldon is dead. I mean, there's only so much. When you're worth 28, 30 billion dollars, there's no amount of money that you can spend, regardless of, especially if it's for an issue that is near and dear to your heart. That, of course, being Israel. And, of course, destroying Palestine, destroying Hamas, and so on. But more importantly, destroying Palestine. Right? That's exactly what they want to do. That's what she wants to do. So if she gave Donald 50 million or 100 million, by the time the end of the month rolls around, she already made that money back in interest. It doesn't mean anything. So she now has secured, like they did for the movement of the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, that was all done on Sheldon Adelson's dime. That's what he wanted to see before he met his maker. And
they wanted the beachfront property and they wanted to move the embassy. There you go.
There you go is right. So I believe that money from like her or Paulson or Elon Musk, that's where the additional money is. But that didn't go into the standard presidential campaign account that gets, that you can give up, what, 464,000 between RNC and president and this and that. This went into his super PAC. And that's what he's going to turn around and say, because there is no freaking way in the world that $151 million was raised for the presidential campaign.
Not a chance.
Not a fucking chance. So listen, I've heard you say that Trump's sentence should be manual labor, like picking up trash on the side of the highway or in a park. But if you would judge Merchan, and I want to be very clear about something, I have the utmost of respect for this man. I really do. And not because of the jurors determining 34 counts of guilt, the professionalism, the class, the Solomonian style that he had sitting as the judge. And I was there for 4 days, 21 hours. I saw it firsthand. What sort of sentence would you give Trump if you were Judge Merchan? And what do you think is fair?
Well, look, I think it should be commensurate with other people in similar cases. I don't think it should be a greater punishment than an ordinary white collar criminal doing this kind of thing at this scale should receive. I think justice should be fair. Now, in that case, that would mean most likely Donald Trump would spend a couple years in jail, or Donald Trump would spend a few years on probation. I think sending Trump to jail would send a message in this country that no one is above the law. I think it would follow the Tim Snyder rule about authoritarians do not comply in advance. I think at this point, Trump is trying to say, trying to intimidate everybody in the process by the statements like, oh, well, if I do this, America won't accept it. They'll rise up. There'll be trouble. I think that he should go to prison. I don't know what the hard number is. I don't know the sentencing guidelines in New York, but I think whatever the number that would be consummate for if his name was Donald Smith.
4 years per count is the guideline, up to 4 years per count. Now, one thing that you have to say, because each and every one of the counts are identical to the other corresponding ones. So what they would do is they would do it as one count, right, where it would all be running concurrent. So, he's basically looking at a guideline of 0 to 48 months.
Right. And I think if that fell in the guidelines, and again, his punishment should not be any greater because his name is Donald Trump than if his name was Donald Smith. Because if anybody was named Donald Smith and this whole trial had gone the same way, the same jury, the same evidence, the same witnesses, the same sentence, the same conviction, no one would notice Donald Smith going to prison. It would be like, oh, white collar asshole, got caught, busted, good. But so I don't think he should be punished beyond the guidelines, but I don't think he should get a free pass or a fee or a fine, because that won't teach him a lesson. And that won't show America that this is a man who is trying to subvert the justice system over and over again. He's trying to break this country's ability to hold him to account by intimidation and by threats of violence. Look, and Michael, I speak from experience. I am sorry your family got doxxed. I've been there. I've done that. It sucks so bad. It is horrible. But they're trying to intimidate you. They're trying to intimidate any other witness against him in any other case. They're trying to find out who these jurors are so they can threaten them. They've threatened Judge Merchan. They've threatened every other person who's trying to hold him to account. And that's why the sentence must not reflect Donald Trump, ex-president, or Donald Trump, the guy who might be president again if we are very unlucky. It must reflect Donald Trump, the criminal who has been convicted of these felonies in this court.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, look, it's the whole thing is really completely messed up. And I believe that if he is not held to account, and I don't care if and I can understand, because again, I find Judge Merchan to be a very elegant judge, very Solomonian in his style and his practice.
Yeah, I saw that too.
You know, I could really turn around and see him giving Donald a very strict home confinement style incarceration. It doesn't have to be behind bars. In fact, and I said this on television the other day with Rachel Maddow and Nicole Wallace and Joy Reid and Chris Hayes and my lawyer, Danya Perry, and myself. I turned around and I said, I don't want to see him in prison. Not because out of like some sort of, hope that, he would understand the pain and the anguish like what I went through thanks to him.
Right.
One of the things that I'm afraid of is that if he does get incarcerated, first of all, how does that work with Secret Service? On top of that, and more importantly, who is he going to share national security secrets that he knows? He will share it with anyone, and I use the example for a bag of tuna or for a book of stamps. He will discuss it like he did with that Australian billionaire when he told them how many nuclear warheads are sitting on one of our nuclear ships. He is a dumb fuck, plain and simple.
People who believe that Donald Trump is not a proximate national security risk at every level are on crack. But Jim Comey said the other day the way they'd probably work it out if he had to get sent to prison, they would set up a trailer somewhere on prison property that the Secret Service could guard 24 hours a day, and he would be segregated from the general population. The idea of Donald Trump living in a trailer for 4 years kind of pleases me at some level. But, again, Michael, the real secret here is not, does Trump deserve to be punished now? We know that the court case was a case decided by jurors and by evidence, no matter what they tried to do to smear you and Stormy and everything else. Every bit of the testimony you gave and that she gave was also backed up. It validated it both directions. The evidence of the paper trail validated what you said. You validated what the paper trail said. The jury found you guys more convincing than their bullshit. And they made a decision that Donald Trump is guilty. And so, this is the penalty phase is here. It was July 11th, the penalty phase is here. But this judge has got to, and again, you're correct, I think, very much about Judge Merchan. He took all the provocations that Trump could throw at him, all the bullshit Trump could throw at him, and he let it roll off of him. And he was tough with them, but he was fair. He said no to the prosecution as much as he said no to the defense in the course of this trial. And the idea that he was going to throw Trump in jail short term would have helped Trump politically, would have helped Trump probably with the jury. But instead, he let Trump hang himself. He let Trump screw himself over by acting like an asshole in court every day, by skunk-eyeing people, by going out and giving his stupid speeches after and before the trial every morning, by
bringing
sleeping
in
in
the
the court,
20,
by
how about by
farting in the
bringing
court.
in the 20 members of Congress to sit there and to do his bidding? Don't think that jurors didn't see members of Congress in there.
Oh,
Don't think
yeah.
that Judge Merchan isn't angry about that, knowing that he's skirting the law, which is the gag order. He did it again just the other day at that batshit crazy press conference that he shouldn't even have. Hey, can I ask you this question? Because you brought up the whole thing about my family and I being doxxed by MAGA. Republicans are trying to delegitimize the legal system and intimidate anyone who speaks out against them and or their Führer. It's a form of terrorism or hate crime or whatever you want to call it. That's what it is. Do you think that Americans really want to live like this? And if they don't, because as you were saying, it sucks. It fucking sucks. You get these nasty, these awful things in the middle of the night. It's awful. If Americans don't really want to live like this, can you just explain to me why the fuck are they backing somebody that's promoting this?
Listen, there is a part of America, and by the way, folks, it's not about economic anxiety. It's not about immigrants. It's not about changing values in the culture. It's because there's a percentage of people in this country who Donald Trump gives them permission to be the asshole they want to be. So that means whatever, MAGA dipshit that looked up, got your information and shared it on 4chan or wherever they did it. That person feels like Donald Trump lets him be the asshole that he really is. That person feels like Donald Trump gives them permission. Michael, I did a focus group back in 2016. We were still trying to figure out how to break the spell, right? And we had this guy in a focus group in Kissimmee, Florida, just outside of Orlando. And he's like, I moved down here after my auto job went away. I moved down to Florida, and I don't like N-words. But now with Trump, I can say N-word again.
Mazel. Good for you, my man.
Good for you, pal.
Right. Congratulations. Like, okay. I'm sure by saying that word, your life is going to be better.
That made his life a whole lot better, right?
Now you could wake up and be happy because you could run around using an offensive word. Congratulations.
Right. But that's the thing. That's what Trump gives them to. That's what Trump gives them to how they can feel empowered and enabled and like they're worth something finally, even though I would argue that it makes them even weaker and smaller and shittier and less successful in the world to follow an asshole like this guy into oblivion.
Yeah. Hey, so, in so many of these podcasts, especially Rick, where I'm blessed to have you on, I always talk about some of the just unbelievable ads that come out of Lincoln Project that you have put out there. Absolutely some of the best ads I think I've ever seen. Republicans now literally just released an attack ad lying about Joe Biden trying to rig the election by throwing Trump in jail. This is an actual ad that's out there. You see the difference? Your ads are predicated in truth and reality. This is a lie. There's this ad that just released in Montana accusing Democratic Senator John Tester of supporting the state-sponsored political persecution led by Joe Biden. I mean, when everything that MAGA says is a lie, and I ask you this, how do we combat that? Especially because you're like the king of ads.
Look, one thing that people should know, every ad we put out there, we don't pre-test all of our ads, but we send our ads through the legal review process to make sure they're truthful and that they can be defended and that they're not either false or defamatory or going to cause us for some massive blowback. Because it used to be that lying in an ad was stupid because you get caught and the other team would beat your head in with it. But now you've got ads out there where what they're trying to do is lure a tester into saying, no, I'm not part of Joe Biden's cabal.
Right.
And then they'll say, he's part of Joe Biden's cabal. So I get strategically why they're doing it, but it speaks to the fact that we live in an America where the Republican Party does not care about the truth. They will do anything to win. And Democrats who underestimate that are missing the boat. What testers people or other outside groups that are in that race should do is flip the script and say, right, whatever the guy's name is, it slips my mind at the moment. But the Republican candidate is pro-crime. The Republican candidate wants felons to be in charge of your life. The Republican candidate believes in that illegal acts are just fine. The Republican candidate believes an adjudicated rapist should be in the White House. There are ways to turn this around, but they don't involve playing defense. They involve once the Republicans launch one of these false attacks on you, you have to go back at them with a worse attack. You do not say, why, no, I'm not a criminal. I'm not part of Joe Biden's conspiracy, because then everybody believes it. You go back and you say, this guy's a fucking scumbag, and he wants a criminal to be president, and he knows he's lying. You've got to push the attack back onto the bad guys. You can't just play defense in this game anymore, because nobody listens to policy, argument, or fact. They listen to who's got the dominant hand in the equation at that moment. It's a very emotionally driven campaign world we live in now.
So what is Lumen? Lumen is the world's first handheld metabolic coach. It's a device that measures your metabolism through your breath. And on the app, it lets you know if you're burning fat or you're burning carbs. And it gives you a tailored guidance to improve your nutrition, your workouts, your sleep, something I need badly, and even stress management. So let me tell you how Lumen works. All you have to do is you breathe into your Lumen first thing in the morning, and you'll know what's going on with your metabolism, whether you're burning mostly fat or carbs. And then Lumen gives you a personalized nutrition plan for that day based on the measurements. You can also breathe into it before and after your workouts and your meals so that you know exactly what's going on in your body in real time. And Lumen will give you tips to keep you on top of your health game. So here's what Lumen does. Lumen provides crucial insights and helpful guidance for your lifestyle. It requires effort though, and it also requires a lifestyle change to achieve results. Let me be clear, Lumen is not just a weight loss tool. It's about understanding and improving your metabolic health. So let me also tell you why metabolic health matters. It matters because your metabolism is your body's engine. It's how your body turns the food that you eat into fuel that keeps you going. Because your metabolism is at the center of everything your body does, optimum metabolic health translates to a bunch of benefits, including easier weight management, improved energy levels, better fitness results, and better sleep. Lumen gives you recommendations to improve your metabolic health. It can also track your cycle as well as the onset of menopause and adjust your recommendations to keep your metabolism healthy through hormonal shifts so that you can keep up your energy and stave off cravings. So if you want to take the next step to improving your health, go right now to lumen.me/Cohen to get 15% off your Lumen. That's LUMEN.me/Cohen for 15% off your purchase. And thank you, Lumen, for sponsoring this episode. Because it's boring, right? If you think about it, you want to listen to some policy ideology on how they're going to do infrastructure rebuilding and how the money is going to be allocated and blah 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 blah. Or do you want to talk about Donald? You want to talk about Donald Trump's little hands, his mushroom pecker? You want to talk about his anti-Semitism, his racism, right, his usage of the N-word? You want to talk about his patting himself on his diaper simply because he was able to get Roe versus Wade overturned by the Dobbs decision, right, and now mifepristone is now classified as a Schedule A narcotic.
Right.
I mean, that's the reality of it, but that's what they need to do. And I agree with you. You got to start hitting below the belt. Stop with all of this niceties and so on.
Yeah,
You
never
smash.
believe that these people are going to fight fair. Right. Never believe that these people are going to show up to a gunfight with a throw pillow.
Right.
They are always going to hit you below the belt. They're always going to lie. They're all and I wrote an article a couple of weeks ago called "Do We Deserve to Win?" Because too many of my Democratic friends still believe that this is going to be solved by being nice. That this is going to be solved by being patient. That the media is going to do the work we need them to do to cover this race fairly and to expose Donald Trump. It's not. We have to fight him every day. We have to treat this like Winston Churchill. We have to fight on the beaches and fight in the hedgerows, and every single day it's a battle with this guy, and no one gets out of it. Nobody gets a day where they get to say, "Oh yeah, let's give Trump the agenda for the day. That'll be great. That'll work out well for us." You've got to always have the teams, whether it's the Biden campaign or the Lincoln Project or Democratic super PACs or any other group that's fighting for this democracy. Everybody always has to pull the oar every single day. We don't get options to walk away from the obligation to fight him. People want us to fight him.
Yeah, and unfortunately, if we don't, the repercussions are going to be very significant, meaning the end of, in my opinion, the end of democracy. Now, Rick, pursuant to one of these recent polls, the economy is the number one issue at the moment for voters. But voters don't seem to understand that things are more expensive today now because corporations are fucking greedy and that they set the prices, not the president. When you have a pharma company charging $150 for 30 pills that basically cost, in order to produce them, 5 cents, 10 cents, 20 cents per piece. And the same drug is being manufactured and sold in Canada because it's a socialist system. If they're selling those 30 pills for $6 or $10, but we're paying $150 here, it is not the president of the United States, regardless of who the president is, that sets the price. How do we sell voters on Bidenomics? That's my question to you.
Well, I mean, look, you've got to show that Biden's fighting back on this stuff. Now, we have not told this great story yet because it really is just coming public now. Biden essentially, when OPEC said we're going to fuck you, Biden said, "All right, well, fuck you instead. I'm going to sell off the Strategic Petroleum Reserve," and it blew up OPEC's chance to raise prices before the election. There's a story this week out of Atlanta where the Justice Department has arrested the CEO of a huge company that turns out they were fixing rent prices in Atlanta and jacking up the rent prices out of control. It wasn't Joe Biden and inflation that caused it. It was a unregulated system of crony capitalism and guys who are basically used to getting away with murder, and they'll get away with more murder under Donald Trump. And so you've got to tell the good news story of Biden. You've got to brag about it some. The Democrats are so defensive about it. You know what? Bill Clinton had a great strategy he used to use all the time. He would say, we're not there yet, but everything's getting better for everybody, but not everybody's there, but and he would always lead with the optimistic part. He would always lead with, we're doing great. We have a great economy. We have a big economy. We have a bold economy. And Democrats are so defensive. They are so afraid to piss anybody off. They are so afraid, like I said earlier, when some climate folks didn't get everything they wanted in the Inflation Reduction Act, the White House was afraid to brag about it because they didn't want to piss off the climate folks. I'm like, who the fuck are you going to vote for in November? Donald Trump or Joe Biden, if you believe climate is your big issue? But you got to tell the optimistic story. You've got to tell the story also, and Democrats have forgotten about this story in a lot of ways, that Donald Trump is the one who drove our economy into the ditch. Donald Trump is the one who mishandled and fucked up COVID so that 1 million Americans died. And it's like they decided to not talk about it anymore. They decided to just walk away from that. There are killer issues about the economy. And if you peel back some of the illusion of Trump and the bullshit of Trump, and show them that this fantasy land that Trump's economy was perfect all along, it would help. But look, Biden's got a lot of economic good news that he can talk about, and he should be talking about it more frequently. But he has to carry that message to a great degree. He has to go and do the ribbon cuttings and do the factory openings and do the events that a president can put together, unlike almost anybody else in the process.
Yeah, you're so right. So let me ask you this then. What effect do you see RFK Jr. having on this race? I mean, he's trying to get into the debate, and I'm not sure if that's a good idea or not, but Kennedy's base seems to cross over more with MAGA than it does with Biden. Is he more? So my question really to you is he more dangerous in your opinion for Trump or for Biden if he gets in?
Here's my take on it, Michael. There is a percentage of the RFK vote that is driven by anti-vaccination, cryptocurrency, conspiracy theory weirdness, all that kind of stuff that you would generally associate with Trump. He split some of that vote away from Trump, but his name is Kennedy. And there are a lot of people in that what they call the double hater category who don't like Trump or Biden. And they're sort of attracted to the famous name and to any alternative, even though if you push them and tell them what it is, if you say to those voters, hey, you're electing Trump, you're not going to get RFK, they do start to pull back from RFK a bit. He right now poses a marginally higher risk to Biden than to Trump, but it's not zero with Trump.
Yeah, it is not. However, two thoughts come to mind right here. First and foremost, while he does have the Kennedy last name, out of the 100 members of the Kennedy family that went on television, RFK is the only one out there that is willing to vote for RFK. The other 99 are saying the guy's batshit crazy.
Right. Get the fuck out of here. No chance.
Right. Have a nice day, jerk off. Anyway, the next one is RFK's running mate. That's the billionaire Nicole Shanahan. Right. She recently said, this is her own words. She said that she is aligned with Tucker Carlson in every way because, and here's the quote, we have left establishment thinking once and for all. Is this their excuse for trying to dismantle democracy? What the fuck are they trying to do here? Because I can't figure it out.
They're trying to elect Donald Trump. They're trying to elect Donald Trump. And look, he got into the race because Steve Bannon talked him into it. And because people like Tucker Carlson were having him on their shows and having them on their cable shows, on their podcasts, and everything else, and all of it, it adds up to an effort that was built to reelect Trump, and none of it, at the end of the day, is a coincidence, Michael. None of it's like a random thing. It didn't just pop out of the sky. This is an effort with a lot of money behind it, a lot of Republican money behind it. And look, and Nicole Shanahan, let's put it this way. It's a sign of how sloppy and lazy our national press corps is that no one's gone to Silicon Valley and asked any real questions about her. Because my God in heaven, the stories I've heard from people out there are eye-popping. And people should go and talk to folks that were around her during her days around Google. People should go talk to people about her history. She's cuckoo-cuckoo. She's, crazier than a shithouse rat.
Mhm.
And she is one of these weird, like in that Tuckerverse of Silicon Valley nationalist, populist, monarchist weirdos who, while RFK is a good tool, what they really want is to burn down the American system.
Yeah, well, you're not joking when you say that RFK is a tool, because he is absolutely a tool. Now, something happened today also with Steve Bannon, where he came out with some statement that, who is it, like Jim Jordan and somebody else, that they're now like RFK plants or something like that. What was that all about? I didn't get a chance to read the
you know
article.
what, Michael? I haven't read this. I saw it on Twitter. I haven't read the coverage, but look, nothing will surprise me when in the department of fuckery with this guy as we go forward. Nothing will surprise me.
Yeah. So let me ask you this then, because right now, with all of the mishigas that Donald is dealing with, another, 35 days, Donald is going to be sentenced on 34 criminal counts. Hard to believe. Well, today, we have a Hunter Biden trial that's going on. What's your take on this trial? And do you think that it's going to hurt President Biden's chances of winning in November? Because it's another thing that I hear Democrats say to me. It's like, yeah, but what about Hunter Biden? And I scratch my head and I say, okay, look, and I hate to keep with the ongoing expletives, but I have no choice. I'm like, are you fucking stupid? You do understand that Hunter Biden is not running for the presidency. A guy who's going to be.
That's the thing.
Yeah, a guy who's going to be the Republican nominee.
Right. You know, that's the thing. When people say to me, like, well, Hunter Biden, I'm like, you know what? Don't vote for him for president then. Don't vote for Hunter when he runs for president. Because when Hunter runs for president, all those are relevant issues and questions. Until then, it's not. You know, it's funny because I don't see the Trump people who are like obsessed with Hunter Biden ever asking questions about why are Don Jr., Eric, and Ivanka banned from running a charity in New York? Why? You know, do any of these people want to probe into the fucking weird clown car mutant circus of the Trump family? No one in this case is ever going to say to themselves, you know, hey, Hunter Biden had a great decade on crack cocaine and heroin. That was great for him. No one believes that. And, you know, the guy has been through hell. He's come out clean, from what I can tell, of whatever all the reporting is. And at this point, you know, there was a moment in the 2020 debates where Trump went after Hunter Biden, and Joe Biden did not do the normal Democratic Party thing. He did not do the normal thing of like duck it or try to. He said, look, like a lot of Americans, we've been through terrible, terrible times because of Hunter's drug addiction. I still love him, Donald. And I got to tell you, somewhere in Donald's dark, weird, fucked up brain, that really got him, because Donald Trump does not love his children. That is not a man who gives a fuck about his children. And you can see it a mile off. Maybe Ivanka because he wants to sleep with her. But if Eric got eaten by wolves tomorrow, Donald Trump would be like, Eric who? What? I mean, but look, the Hunter thing is a distraction. It's bait for the right wing. No one's going to change their vote based on it. It's meant to distract from Donald Trump.
But I hear, Rick, I hear from Democrats when they say, well, do you think it's right that Joe Biden will pardon his son if in fact that he's convicted? And I'm sitting there and I'm saying to him, first of all, he hasn't been convicted. Okay, that's number one. Number two, you don't know if Joe Biden will or will not. But I will tell you one thing. Donald Trump will pardon himself if he becomes president of the United States.
Absolutely. And every one of the co-conspirators. Exactly. And look, I'll bet $1,000 right now to anybody out there that if Hunter Biden is convicted, Joe Biden says, do your time.
I wouldn't be shocked.
There's no chance. There's no chance that happens. But as you said, Michael, correctly, if Donald Trump is convicted of a federal crime and he's reelected, he will pardon himself.
Absolutely.
And not only that,
and the January 6th insurrectionists as well.
That's where I was going. He's also told us he's going to pardon hundreds and hundreds of people who are also felons, who attacked police officers, who shat in the Capitol, who caused enormous damage to this country, who tried to have an insurrection. I mean, this is not there is no comparison between the way that Joe Biden treats the law and Donald Trump treats the law. Donald Trump is a criminal who has behaved as a criminal, who has engaged in criminal acts and been convicted of crimes. Joe Biden is a traditionalist. He is an institutionalist. He is not going to stand in the way of a legitimate court decision, even if it's against his son, whom he loves. You know what? If Hunter Biden goes to jail, Joe Biden will go visit him in prison. But that's about as much as he's going to do. He's not going to pardon him because he understands that that would be harmful to America. Not because it wouldn't be, not because it's just the wrong thing to do, but because the damage it will do. Trump is about doing nothing but causing damage.
Yeah, and chaos. So let me ask you this then, because to me, I see the abortion issue still being the linchpin in this race. I really do. I don't understand how any guy who has a mom, a sister, a daughter, a niece,
right,
a female cousin, how the hell that you are able to vote for somebody that pats themselves in their diaper to turn around to say, great job in overturning Roe v. Wade. I take credit for that. I don't get it. I just don't get it. Will it be women demanding their rights that makes or breaks the Biden campaign? Do you think it'll be women that turn around and put Biden back into the White House and sends Trump packing?
I think women are going to deliver a nut punch to Trump and to a lot of Republican candidates this year, based on the fact that when you start out in a generic pre-Dobbs decision era, depending on the state, between 22 and 28% of Republican women were pro-choice before Dobbs. And that doesn't mean they're all like Roe v. Wade, pro-choice, yay, abortion. It means that they're like, government should stay out of my fucking life. Get out of my business. It's more like what I call like a libertarian pro-choice. That's a very common Republican behavioral profile for Republican women, 22 to 28%, depending on the state. Couple states lower, couple states higher. After Dobbs, that number essentially grew by 50%. And they're angry. They are furious. And if I had been the mastermind behind the Republican Party and Dobbs had happened, I would have gone out to every Republican governor and all those state legislators and said, shut the fuck up. Don't do anything. Wait until Trump's back in office. Then we're going to fuck him. We're going to make it illegal. We're going to criminalize everything. But they couldn't stop themselves.
Yeah.
They're like a teenage boy on his first fucking date. He can't stop himself, right? These guys went out there and they passed these 6-week bans and criminalization and Plan B criminalization, all these things, travel bans, monitoring women's periods, all this crazy shit. And they've kept it up for a year and change since Dobbs was decided, a year and a half now since Dobbs was decided. That has killed the Republicans with women in a lot of these places. It is a major, major, major inflection point. They are going to hit Republicans hard on this. And the idea that it's on the ballot in a place like Florida and a place like Arizona is not great for Republican presidential and statewide hopes.
Good. And that's what we have to keep hammering. Go to, I think the Democrats should just be hammering 24/7 on women's rights, on the fact that my daughter has less rights than my grandmother, who's deceased now for like 15 years. All right. This to me is despicable. The fact that they think that they have the right to tell a woman what to do with her body, her reproductive decision-making. This is absolutely nauseating. I just want to touch on something else for a second.
Sure.
We're beginning to wind down the hour here. Rachel Maddow had a segment on Monday about the potential for Russian interference in this election.
Sure.
Do you worry about that at all? And speaking of foreign influence,
it's happening right now. I worry about the Chinese and I worry about the Russians. I worry about the Chinese using TikTok with younger voters, which, by the way, folks, here's a really honest answer. Unless TikTok the Chinese algorithm behind TikTok was feeding younger voters 24 hours of Gaza content, they wouldn't know where it was on a fucking map. Let's be real here. The Russians are doing what they've always done. They've got useful idiots working for them now, like Tucker Carlson works for Russia, literally works for Russia now, has a show on a paid show on a Russian television network. And by the way, folks, just so you know, there are no television networks in Russia that are not connected to the Russian government. They are all under the control of Putin. You've got, Elon Musk and this whole platform of Twitter amplifying every pro-Russian message in the world. And you've got a lot of Republicans now who really believe that Vladimir Putin is a better role model for how America should be governed than any American president, Republican or Democrat, ever since. It is. I worry about it every day, Michael, and it's going to be something we have to face up to as a country and be honest with ourselves about what's happening with this. Russia is a third world country that has a decaying second world military, but it's got a first-class propaganda and intelligence system.
Yep, that they do. But speaking of foreign influence, what about Netanyahu coming to lie to Congress next week? Does that also worry you? Because it worries me.
Look,
it worries me as somebody who stands with Israel, as the proud American Jew, as a person who understands and believes in the idea of democracy, because Israel is a true democracy. It worries
Messy
me
as it
that
is, it is a
somebody
true
like
democracy.
Netanyahu is going to come and lie to Congress next week, and it's going to be televised.
Look, a lot of folks don't know this, but we tried to help a center-right secular candidate beat Netanyahu back in 21. And it was very difficult. They blew Netanyahu out, but our guy didn't make it. Fine, that happens in politics. But Netanyahu is what Trump wants to be. He has been under criminal indictment for years, and the way he is engaged in endless corruptions of the Israeli political system and the Israeli courts and the Israeli justice system to protect himself from criminal liability, it is now played out. There's a lot of solid evidence out there that Netanyahu had plenty of intelligence indicators before October 7th, and that in some ways, he and a lot of people that I know in Israel on the right, the secular right, have said to me, of course he knew. He needed the war. Those 1,000 people that got murdered by Hamas were to keep Netanyahu in office because he knew it was coming. And that is a dark and really cynical way to look at things. But this is a dark and cynical guy. And of course, the Republicans are going to bring him here because Donald Trump and Jared Kushner, and by the way, this is one more lesson for our Democratic friends. Oh, you're pissed off at the president about Gaza? I want you to just remember, when you don't vote for Joe Biden and Donald Trump gets reelected, and Jared Kushner and Donald Trump and Bibi Netanyahu level the entirety of Gaza, burn it down to the ground, expel every person living there. Okay, I want you to feel smug and morally superior that while Jared Kushner's over there building a fucking parking lot in a water park where Gaza used to be, that you didn't vote for Joe Biden, you voted for Donald Trump, because what could be worse? I mean, Donald Trump can't be worse than Biden, right? It's ridiculous. So but that's what's going to happen if these people don't unfuck themselves, I think, pretty quickly.
Yeah, so a couple things there. First of all, I agree with you. He wants to be Netanyahu in terms of figuring out how to get off from his culpability, from his criminal culpability. But I'll tell you who he really wants to be. He wants to be Kim Jong-un. He wants to be Mohammed bin Salman. And more importantly than anything, he wants to be Vladimir Putin. He wants to own America the way that Vladimir Putin owns Russia. Nothing gets done without Vladimir Putin's blessing, especially in like Moscow. Nothing gets done unless he signs off on it. And the only way that he signs off on it is if he has a piece of it. And what Trump will do, and that's the funny thing about guys like Elon Musk or Bezos or, Zuckerberg or any one of these, mega billionaires. If they think that their money is safe with Donald Trump as president of the United States, Just look at what Mohammed bin Salman did to his members of his royal family when he put them in the Ritz-Carlton on the floor.
Oh, yeah.
Donald Trump will do the same thing, except it won't be in a Ritz-Carlton. It'll probably be in Mar-a-Lago in the banquet hall, and he will have them sign over their vast wealth to him because he's going to claim that they are enemies that they have stolen from the United. Think about Elon Musk for a second. Where did Elon Musk make the bulk of his money? He made the bulk of his money in government subsidies on his EVs,
That's right.
on his electric vehicles, on Tesla. $7,000, $7,500 per vehicle. Those hundreds of billions of dollars was really our tax dollars that was given as an incentive to buy an electric vehicle. So Trump will say, that's not your money. Fuck that. That money belongs to me. That's my money. That's what Mohammed bin Salman did to all of the members of the royal families that were there, his relatives. So if you could do that to a relative, just think what Donald Trump's going to do to Bezos. Think about what he's going to do to all these idiots that are right now dishing out money to him at insane levels. But wait and see.
The best case scenario for those people, Michael, in the future, the best case scenario for them, the very, very best case scenario for those people is that they, for the rest of their lives, have to pay Donald Trump a cut of their earnings and the VIG on whatever he says that they owe him. And that's not a free market. That's not an America that's recognizable by anybody who understands and loves this country, but it is the future that Donald Trump is promising.
It's also not a Rick Wilson, Michael Cohen hyperbolic statement. It's something that Donald Trump has said. The same way, like going back what I was going to say about Kushner, he's not going to build a water park. He has already come forth and said that this is very valuable property to put up condos overlooking the water. I mean, that's, to me,
folks, don't take our word for it. Go look it up. It's out there.
And by the way, the interesting thing is, who do you think is going to fund the whole thing? Mohammed bin Salman, his new best friend.
Of course.
So, look, the hour is coming to an end. I do have one last question for you.
Okay, I got a bump in a second.
Yeah, well,
but yeah.
Look, if you were a betting man, which bootlicker do you think gets Trump's VP nod?
I think J.D. Vance is well ahead of the field right now.
Yeah, you don't think it's going to be a woman?
I think Kristi Noem screwing up kind of blew up that equation, and I don't see how he can go to Nikki Haley is still too problematic for his own base.
Elise
because
Stefanik?
Once they've done something to offend him, it's over.
Agreed. Elise Stefanik.
So I think Elise Stefanik. I mean this respectfully. Donald Trump does not think she looks the part.
Yeah.
So,
well,
because you and I both know he likes a look.
Yep.
So.
Yep. Well, Rick,
Michael,
thank you,
with you, my brother.
It's great to see you.
Likewise, I'll see you soon.
You know I'm going to need you very soon. So stay tuned.
I got you, man. I know the thing.
Bye.
See ya.